The arena's harsh crimson lights cast an ominous pall over the octagonal battleground. Zonrath, the reigning champion of the Kulath Fringe Fighters Circuit, awaited his latest challenger with customary disdain. As the obsidian gates slid open, a wiry, unassuming human male strode forth, his coppery skin glistening with ritualistic oils. Murmurs of exotic intrigue rippled through the bloodthirsty audience. The upstart Earthers were still novelties in this sector, their species deemed too fragile and primitively underdeveloped to pose any legitimate threat. Zonrath sneered inwardly as his formidable psionic abilities probed the human's surface thoughts. A jumbled welter of muscle mnemonics and breathing patterns, the feeble mental repertoire of these limited creatures. With a guttural roar, he charged across the dimly lit sand towards his opponent. Blinding arcs of telekinetic force held the human frozen in place as gigantic corded arms swung downward in a devastating overhead strike, only to dissipate against empty air as the human pivoted into a seamless inward slip, evading the strike with preternatural reflexes. The telepathic paralysis shattered like a fleeting daydream. Surprise flashed across Zonrath's visage as the human followed up with a blistering two-strike combination. First, a snapping front kick checked inches from the alien's thoracic cluster, then a sharp cross-punch halted a hair's breadth from the sensitive auricular cone. Staggered by the feinted speed and pinpoint accuracy, Zonrath instinctively fell back upon his most formidable technique, cranial immobilization. He unleashed searing psychic tendrils to hijack the human's neuromuscular responses, only to be rocked by a thudding leg kick to the quadriceps tendon as the human seamlessly transitioned targets. Gritting his fangs, Zonrath attempted a devastating round kick, summoning his densely muscled leg in a scything airborne arc aimed at the human's liver. Yet his strike was deftly parried, the human smothering the attack by dipping low and checking the blow with a bone-crushing underhook. Before Zonrath could regain his precarious balance, the human sent his mass crashing down in an explosion of sand and sweat, with a slicing arm wrap followed by a stunning hip throw. Tasting the coppery tang of his own life essences, Zonrath swung his Aranava blade in a last desperate attempt at disabling his relentless foe. But the human was already inside his guard, stuffing the attack with a vice-like clinch before unleashing a withering knee strike directly into Zonrath's sternum. As his wind fled in an agonized rasp, Zonrath experienced a final chilling moment of clarity. These humans had not simply bred to fight from their barbaric inceptions through some anomalous physiological pathway. Their neurology enabled instantaneous recall of entire muscle memory arsenals, each technique preloaded into their very sinews and extremities through conditioning and repetition. The human was reacting not from conscious decision but autonomically invoking full-body reflexes, each block, strike, and grappling sequence preternaturally hardwired at the deepest possible neuromuscular level. From infancy, their reflexes and instincts had been programmed until the body itself became an autocatalytic system, seamlessly flowing between techniques without the delays of active cognition. At first, Zonrath held the advantage, easily reading and subverting the human's initial combat calculations. But once those somatic commands were issued, there was no halting or anticipating the ballistic chain of primal responses. Each feint and shift in the human's combat rhythm kicked off a new hyper-branching cascade of pre-programmed subroutine convulsions, executed at a rate that entirely transcended Zonrath's psionic abilities. As thunderous footfalls and the cheers of the crowd faded to a dull throb, one final disquieting thought reverberated through Zonrath's rapidly dimming consciousness. The human had not defeated him through sheer savage skill or prowess. It had somehow distilled the terrifyingly nuanced biomechanics of unarmed combat down into cellular scripting, an inverse art of muscular calligraphy inscribed into its very bone and marrow. How? Zonrath wheezed through a veil of darkness. The human's voice seemed to drift from some great chasm as his fading senses clung to one final answer. That's just how we're built.